Running back, running back, Have you ever had that feeling you want to start someone? And it wasn't really based on anything they've done. Every day I see you on the bench, wondering if I want to change this. And I can't believe Aaron Glenn still has a job. I overheard the trade scuttlebutt, and this is what I heard. Heard you're looking for a running back. I see that. Give him time. You know Brees is gonna be that. Don't be scared, press accept. Put your trust in me. I'm not trying to rape you in all honesty. Heard you looking for a running back. I see that. Give him time. You know Brees is gonna be that. Don't be scared, press accept, put your trust in me. I'm not trying to rape you in honesty. Running back, running back, running back, Welcome into the Showtime Fantasy Football Podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. This is your host from sunny Dallas, Texas, Ty Stewart Langston. Welcoming my co-host from Rogers, Arkansas, Trayton Benz. How we doing, brother?
Pretty good, pretty good. Sitting at 5-1, 5-game win streak. Hard not to be positive vibes. Also, since we last had a podcast, Knox has been born, and so that's been going well. So trying to adjust to dad life, but here we are back on the grind, ready to give the people what they want.
Yeah, I thought maybe you being distracted by early fatherhood would maybe cause you to lose focus, take a couple of losses, but I believe you're 2-0 or 1-0 since Knox has been born. So the Bogo Caniac train just keeps on rocking. Showtime went 2-0 last week, so maybe we should just never record again because we are undefeated weeks following no podcast. But enough of that. We're going to get into the fantasy doctor segment today. Since we missed last week, we're just going to kind of do a little bit more of a high level 2-week episode recap. We'll honestly, last week's matchups were all blowouts. I crushed Luke. Cole crushed Jerry. Josh absolutely humiliated Andrew, over more than doubled him up, almost tripled him up. Andrew scored 65 fantasy points. It has to be close to the low in the history of this league. And then Cannon destroyed Max. So all the winners were clear of 140. Really, the only one that ended up close at all was you and Will. And that one, I'm not going to say it wasn't in doubt because there were definitely things that happened in the Monday game that if they had gone that other way, Will could have won. But coming into the night, he needed legacy performances from Swift and London. He ended up getting those. They combined for over 50. But you ended up putting him away with a Matt Gay 50-yarder late that just made it 2 out of reach for Swift, even with a late touchdown. So, yeah, Will falls to 1-5. We got a ton of 1-5 teams this year. The spread of the league, a couple weeks in, it looked like there was going to be a little bit more balanced and competitive than last year. Last year, there were a lot of bad teams as well, but we've kind of seen that again this year. You're not seeing a ton of 3-3s, 4-2s, 2-4s. We've got 3 1-5 teams. 1-5 is pretty much life support in fantasy football. I'm not going to say 1-5 is you are completely destined for the Sacco, but you're going to have
Playoffs are out of the picture.
Playoffs are pretty much out of the picture,
They're out of
barring
the picture.
some miracle like running the table. Because literally the best you can do at this point
Is
is
8-5.
8-5, and I got left out of the playoffs last year at 8-5. So you cannot even guarantee yourself a playoff spot running the table. So if you're 1-5, if you're Will, Jerry, or Luke, you're more or less just trying to fight your way to the 6 seed to somehow avoid the Sacco. Or even the better strategy might be to accept your fate in the Sacco and start scouting Sacco matchups at this point. I don't know what the approach is going to be from these 1-5 teams, but they've fallen so quickly and so hard that it's just bleak. But you know what these 1-5 teams need? They need a visit from the fantasy doctor. That's right. We've got our
Are we not reviewing the matchups?
No. You said you needed an hour or less. We don't have time.
We can do quick reviews.
I just did quick reviews. It was all blowouts. What do you want to talk about?
Let's do a minute per game. Come on.
Okay. 1 minute per game in week 6. We'll start with the irrelevant ones. Cole crushed Jerry 145 to 111. Pretty balanced effort from Cole other than Bijan, but all of Bijan's work was on Monday night after the game was already decided. He's a stud, but then he's got Hurts, Potato, Genty, all with solid performances. Metcalf scored another touchdown. For Jerry, it's just kind of more of the same. Kamara was a terrible third-round pick. He started 2 Saints on a team led by Rattler. That's embarrassing. Hassan Haskins.
I didn't even know he started Hassan Haskins.
He started the worst Chargers run. I don't know why he went in on Haskins when Vidal was right there. Worthy's been pretty bad, and Rice is on his way back, so he sucks. Montgomery is just Gibbs Waterboy bitch. Baker and A-Chain are like his only 2 redeeming players. So Jefferson on bye. McLaurin still hurt. This was a tough week for Jerry. We thought maybe last week when he picked up that win, we were seeing another Renaissance, but Renaissance is dead. Change your team name. Jerry Recession.
All right. 1 minute on Josh versus Andrew. This was a huge blowout. Almost 100-point win here for Josh.
Jesus.
Jaden Daniels on Monday kind of just poured it on, but honestly, defense and kicker combined for 32. Lad McConkey, best game of the season, 20 points with Quentin Johnston out. McBride, I believe, best game of the year. Yes, 17 points. Kendrick Bourne, solid play by Josh there. But yeah, he just kind of not really a huge stud from the skill positions, but just kind of got his way to 150, and it just wasn't even close. Andrew's struggling. I think this is like 3 weeks in a row of less than 100 points. This time it was possibly a league record low of 65 since we switched to 2 flex. Mason Taylor, embarrassing pickup at tight end. The Jets are horrible. Jacoby Myers has done nothing since maybe week 1. Krosky Merritt was supposed to have a breakout, and he scored 5 points. Trevion, I have no idea why he's starting Trevion Henderson. Devontae Smith, the Eagles are broken. Tony Pollard is a Titan, and now he's splitting with Tajay Spears. Juwan Jennings is apparently playing with like 8 injuries and had 1 catch. So honestly, Andrew's just, he had Addison on bye and 3 of his studs are hurt. So hard to excuse it, but or hard to not to give him that excuse. But I feel like he could have found something better on waivers or made a trade or something. But yeah, this one's tough. Andrew's lost 4 in a row with all of his injuries, and Josh is 3-3.
Last irrelevant matchup, Cannon beat Max 140 to 78. Cannon improves to 6-0. Mahomes as QB1 dropped 37 on Sunday Night Football against the Lions. JSN is wide receiver 2. Who's wide receiver 1? I guess still Puka. JSN 8 for 162 and a touchdown. Rico Dowdle had his second 30-burger in a row with Chuba out. That was pretty much all he needed to beat Max. Max, just bad week for him. All 3 of his wide receivers, Puka, Harrison, Wilson, all got hurt. Puka ankle, Wilson knee, Harrison concussion. He was already missing Nico,
Jordan Mason on bye, Hampton hurt. So this was already going to be a tough week for him, starting Isaiah Pacheco and Sterling Shepard. But it doesn't help when you also suffer 3 injuries mid-game. Stafford was bad, 181 and a touchdown. Overall, just a horrible week for Max. He had won 3 in a row coming into this and just fell way back down to earth. Perfect timing for Cannon to pick up a free 6th win. All right, looking at your game, you kind of dominated Luke here. Circled the wagon right off the road into a ditch. As Luke has also lost 4 in a row. He's at 1-5. Our champion just keeps getting huge numbers put up on him. Drake May and Josh Jacobs paced you here. Drake May destroyed the Saints, almost all of it in the first half, 261 and 3, as well as 2-point conversion and 30 rushing yards. 33 fantasy points. Jacobs, 30 burger against the Bengals. That was kind of as expected. Ted McMillan, 2 tutties. Tyler Warren is a monster, 15 points. Raiders D, who you acquired for Brees Hall on the waiver wire, 17. That's pretty much all she wrote. You didn't need much else. For Luke, didn't even get to 100 points. Judkins had his first horrible game as a starter, 3 points. Sun God, single digits. Devontae Adams, single digits, even with Puka getting hurt. Waller, single digits with a touchdown. Debo, single digits. This was kind of just the shoe dropping on a lot of Luke's players in the same week. McCaffrey and Herbert were fine, but he did not get much from his skill guys. So Luke's kind of licking his wounds. Bowers is still out. Chubo's out. Some of his guys aren't performing. Now he's 1-5. So kind of just bracing for the Sacco at this point.
Yeah, I was going to talk shit to Luke in English, but I figured with him having been in Italy during our matchup, I'm going to go with Sotilo pochila troia. That means suck on that, you little bitch, in Italian. All right. Last Showtime matchup of the week. Kind of talked about it already, but you narrowly defeated Will, 149-146. Cam Scattaboo got you off to a great start on Thursday night. 30 burger from the rookie Giants running back. And then you saw bounce backs from BTJ and JMO. Good dividends on your buy low trade acquisitions there. 16-point advantage at DST as well, as the Rams completely shut down Cooper Rush. That was a good stream by you. Ferguson got in the end zone. JT still a stud, over 20 points again. And then Caleb, Fake Fan Conundrum, goes over 20 to wrap it up on Monday night. For Will, still without Lamar, but Bryce Young filled in admirably, carving apart the worst secondary in the NFL. God, the Cowboys are cheeks. 24 points for Bryce, 27 for Pickens in that same game, a shootout. And then, like I said, 50 combined from Swift and London, and a heroic comeback attempt from Will. And it would have been a completed attempt if Drake London just could levitate his foot for like another inch. You would have lost there on that last second in the first half touchdown attempt by London. Overall, this was actually a really tough loss for Will when you consider it's his 3rd loss in a row. He's just fighting and scratching to get something out of Lamar. Jahmyr Gibbs just really shit the bed in this one when he couldn't. I mean, he got doubled up by his own teammate, JMO, who he had been dominating all season. Just the worst possible moment for Gibbs to have his worst fantasy game of the year for Will. Things are looking okay moving forward, but as we talked about earlier with the 1-5 record, he's probably just digging himself too deep of a hole to dig out of. All right. That is your week 6 recap. Moving forward, looking ahead to week 7 and rest of season, we can do a quick stock up, stock down here. Who are you feeling better about coming out of week 6?
Stock up. I'll go with you, actually. I feel like your team's looking pretty good right now. Drake May and Dak have established themselves as top 5 quarterbacks, and Tyler Warren has established himself as a top 3 tight end, and you took all of those guys late in the draft, and so you're really just kind of sitting back and kicking your legs up. And then also one big reason for the stock up is Rashee Rice is back. You took a chance drafting him in round 6 that you would have a decent enough record by the time he came back to where you could still make the playoffs. And then you're sitting here at 4-2. So really, if I told you after the draft you'd be 4-2 getting Rashee Rice back, you would have probably taken that every day of the week. And that's the situation you find yourself in.
Yeah, appreciate that stock up nomination. I'm gonna throw it right back at you, the BOGO Caniacs, a little stock up. I think it was a great week for you in terms of players you weren't sure you were going to be able to count on this season emerging. The 3 I'll highlight specifically would be Cam Scadaboo, who is now a top 10 fantasy running back coming off a 30-point game. You feel great about starting him now. Brian Thomas Jr. had his best game of the season. It had kind of been creeping up, opportunities and yardage going up a little bit, and then boom, 10 targets, 8 catches, 90 yards and touchdown. And that was with also a 50-yard touchdown being overturned by a stupid offside. So it could have been an even bigger coming out party for BTJ in 2025. And then JMO, we finally saw the involvement, 7 targets, 6 catches, 66 and a touchdown. You'd love to see that continue. So if those 3 guys emerge, you've already got JT, your walking 20 burger, and then a couple of more stabilizing pieces with Furry and Dobbins. You just needed some of those upside flash guys you traded for or drafted late in Scadaboo to show it, and they did. So I think, we thought you were a fraud 4-1. I still think you're a fraud, but maybe a little bit less of a fraud now. Stock up for the BOGO Caniacs. All right, who you stock down on? A lot of choices here.
Yeah, it's going to take me a while to make my choice here. I'm going to go with Max. We thought Max might have been just running hot. Oracle might make a playoff push, but he took a tough L this week and a lot of L's on his roster. You already covered it, but Puka is probably going to miss this week, and then a bye. Harrison's probably going to miss this week. Garrett Wilson might miss a couple weeks. Amarian Hampton on IR since we last had a podcast, and so overall it's just not looking up for Oracle. And with his roster management, you have to question, is he going to be able to weather this storm, or is he just going to pack it in and we'll see him in a couple weeks with a healthy team. I don't really trust him to play the waiver wire correctly, or make any trades. And so I think Max, he was looking like he might make a playoff push, but I'm guessing this might set him back.
Yeah, I agree with that pick. My stock down is going to be Suck My Ditka. You got to go with the person who scored 65 fantasy points. I know his best 3 players are hurt, but something tells me even with those guys back, we're kind of seeing the roster crumble underneath. There's no solid foundation here. Trevion, the breakout's not coming. He's droppable. Bill, who looked like maybe he could be that step-up RB2, proved that he is not someone you can really rely on even in good matchups, fumbled. Devontae Smith is super erratic and inconsistent. Jacoby Myers is just on a bad team. And then everyone else is just like Pollard is really not playable. Juwan Jennings should be on the waiver wire. And honestly, even Josh Allen hasn't been what you want. He's only got 1 game this season over 29 fantasy points. You need more of those blow-up games. So he's been having a lot more turnovers recently too. So just kind of weird stuff from Allen. We'll see if the Bills offense gets back on track after the bye. But God, Andrew needs those players back ASAP. He was 2-3. Him and Josh were both 2-3 going into this game. And one comes out feeling great, scoring 150 and gets to 3-3, and one scores 65 and drops to 2 games below 500. 4th loss in a row for Andrew. It really can't. The vibes can't get much worse right now for Suck My Dicka.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
All right. So for these bad teams, we do this segment once a year. It's the Fantasy Doctor. we've got these teams presenting symptoms. They are trying to figure out what's wrong, what's the fix, right? We've kind of, we've hinted maybe they're dead in the water, but it may not be terminal yet. So let's see what the doctor has in order. All right, patient number 1 is Jerry Renaissance, coming in with a 1-5 record. Some of the symptoms for the Renaissance we've got here is second lowest points in the league, lighting multiple picks on fire, including a third-round pick with Kamara, and just absolutely non-existent bench. So, all right.
All right, come on in.
Hello, doctor. My name is Renaissance. Last year, I was last year I was 0-4, and I luck boxed my way into the playoffs, so I thought I could just do that again. But it turns out I just blow. What do I need to do with my roster to avoid the sacco?
Yeah, unfortunately, Renaissance, your condition seems to be potentially untreatable. We're looking at this roster here, and here's the thing with Jerry's roster. I think obviously his draft was just really bad. His scoring's been bad, but if you look at where he's at right now.
Doctor, last time I was here, you had a southern accent.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Sonny. I forgot my southern accent that I used as a doctor, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, for Renaissance, I'm taking a look at this roster, and you're 1-5, so you're destined for the sacco. So really, what I would do is start thinking about sacco matchups and what makes sense as far as potential trades. Now, Devon Achane is a string bean running back who probably won't stay healthy for the end of the year, and the Dolphins are absolute dumpster fire show. So I would consider trying to trade Achane and get a 2-for-1 back, since the rest of your starters are dog shit, and then you could potentially fill out your lineup with a couple starters, because a playoff team might be willing to give a couple starters for Achane, and then that way you don't have to start Xavier Worthy or Alvin Kamara, because I really don't think Alvin Kamara should be starting in a lineup, and your bench is horrible. So what I would do is potentially look to trade Devon Achane for a 2-for-1.
Thank you, doctor.
All right, next patient. We've got the Bear Jew coming in with a 1-5 record, a torn hamstring on his star quarterback, absolutely disgusting running back depth, and potentially we're looking at some tight end fraud syndrome here for Bear Jew. So we have to run some tests, but patient's coming in now.
All right, come on in.
Hello, my name is the Bear Jew. Typically, I am not good at fantasy football, but this year I took Lamar Jackson, who I was told is the best of both quarterback and running back. He can't seem to stay healthy, and neither is Mike Evans. I forgot that I needed to draft more than 2 running backs, so I got Jahmyr Gibbs
and DeAndre Swift, and the rest of my running backs are waiver fodder. What should I do to turn around this terrible 1-5 season?
Well, now, Bear Jew, I take a look at your roster, and honestly, I like a lot of what I'm seeing here. From a quarterback perspective, when Lamar gets back, he should be a stud. Your running backs are pretty good as far as Gibbs and Swift showed some promise in their game on Monday. And then you have a nice 4-pack of receivers with London, Pickens, Evans, and Sutton. Now, tight end has been a weak point. You've had tight end dysfunctional syndrome. As I look through the weeks of your lineup, you have yet to get 7 points from a tight end. And that is a clear indication of tight end dysfunctional syndrome, or TEDS, as we like to say, TEDS. And so if you have TEDS, I'm not sure Dallas Goedert is going to be your solution. I know that you spent some fab on him, and we will get to that in the waiver segment. But if I were you, I would look to potentially package Goddard and Sutton. I view Sutton as a potential sell high, as Blows Dix can't get him the ball, and his target share is lower this year. So I would look to package Goddard and Sutton and maybe upgrade at tight end or flex, and then go get a better tight end off of waivers. Even if it's just Hunter Henry who got dropped, I'd probably prefer him to Goddard. Kyle Pitts potentially. We can look at our options, but really the main thing is I'd potentially look to move off of Goddard and Sutton. But overall, there's not a whole lot else you can do. Your points against are second most in the league, so sometimes shit just happens.
Thank you, doctor. I'm going to go offer some trades. All right, our next patient is Circle the Wagons, also coming in with a dismal 1-5 current record, most points against in the league. Some of the presenting symptoms here are lack of quarterback production, an overall cocky attitude coming off of last season, with some potential fantasy karma attacking here, and then just he's starting a walrus at tight end, so maybe some sort of rabies from a walrus bite. We'll have to do some tests there. But all right, here comes Circle the Wagons.
Come on in, son.
Hello, blimey, my name is Circle the Wagons. Yeah, I can't seem to buy myself a victory. I can't. My quarterback's only scored over 17 points one time, and I have the most points against in the league. It's bullshit. Everyone just drops their freaking season high. I mean, last year I won the title because I got a bunch of Mickey Mouse opponents, and everyone laid down, and I went on the biggest victory lap of all time. I bought rings and banners and cards and made music, and I thought I was just going to roll the wagons out again and do it all again, but now I'm getting exposed. I've lost 4 in a row. I don't know what to do. I feel the walls closing in. I've got a new kid that I'm trying to convince myself I care about more than this fantasy football team, but we all know that's not true. I feel like my team is good. I picked up Cowinshawn Judkins off the waiver wire, and I got Christian McCaffrey on my fantasy team, who is just an absolute beast, sun god as well. I don't understand why I keep losing. I'm deliriously thinking I can still make the playoffs if I can start winning some games. Talk some sense into me, doctor.
Yeah. Now, honestly, I think your team, your points against are high, but it's a mindset. I'm gonna diagnose you with depression, uh, severe depression, because every week you're just in the group text bitching about the points against when you could be thinking about how to improve. And you're not focused on self care and your roster. You've made one? No, you've made no trades. I don't think so. Um, and so clearly you're just not thinking about yourself. And so what we're going to look at is how do you get some upside on this roster? And for me, that's going to be a stack. I love to find a stack, and you have Herbert and Keenan Allen, but that's kind of a dog shit stack. I'm trying to think of a good stack that actually provides some upside. So I would reach out to Bogo Caniacs and see if he'd be willing to give you Jared Goff, pair him with Amon Ross, Sun God St. Brown. I'm sure you could throw him Judkins or somebody like that. He might give you Jared Goff. So that's going to be my prescription. I do think some doctors, some opinions out there would say to trade Brock Bowers, but you're already 1-5. You're going to the Sacco, so I'd wait on Bowers and just have him be some Sacco insurance.
What should I do about Chuba Hubbard? He was supposed to be the Carolina Panthers' #1 running back, and I'm thinking he's actually going to be the savior of my season.
Yeah, you can actually probably drop him to the waiver wire. He's actually picked up a severe case of Wally pipped by Rico Dowdle in the last couple of weeks, and so that was a bad pick by you. You've also seemed to have acquired Aaron Jones off of waivers. Not sure if that was a wrong button or something, but you can really drop both of them to the waiver wire.
Thank you, doctor. I'm going to go do that right now. All right, our last patient is coming in with a 2-4 record. Suck my Ditka, 4 losses in a row after a 2-0 start. Presenting symptoms would be injury, roster mismanagement, Bill Krosky merit, and we're potentially seeing some signs of cancer here. Henderson lymphoma is what we suspect. So here he comes now.
Come on in.
Hi, doctor. My name is Suck My Ditka.
Hello, Suck my Ditka. What seems to be the issue?
Well, I was 2-0 feeling good, and then my entire team fell apart because the only good 3 players I drafted got hurt. And I was too stupid to realize that if I just sit there with those good players on my bench, that I was going to lose. Now, I thought Trevion Henderson, I saw him at Ohio State. I thought he was going to take me to the promised land. And he is the 39th ranked running back. And then I got Devontae Smith, who I thought was a Heisman Trophy winner, and he's the 33rd ranked wide receiver. Tony Pollard sucks, and I don't know what to do. Help me, doctor.
All right, now I do think, unlike our last 3 patients, your situation might actually be curable. I think you could avoid the Sacco, but you've got to act quick. Now you're getting back CD Lamb and George Kittle this week, but you've got Josh Allen on bye, and Bucky Irving is still out. So what I would do is I would look to sell Josh Allen and Bucky Irving this week and potentially try to make your way to irrelevance and out of the sacco. Now, Josh Allen is on bye, but he really hasn't been what you expected this year. As we mentioned, only once over 29 points. And so I think off of name value, you could get someone to give you a really good, solid starting quarterback and a flex option for Josh Allen. And then for Bucky Irving, you can go to either a Sacco or a playoff team who will want him in the playoffs and get a comparable RB1, RB2. And even if you want to package Allen and Irving, I bet you could get a haul for them. But you're going to want a quarterback back because right now you have CJ Stroud. Would not recommend. So I would say package Allen and Irving or sell them separately, and you can still make a push because I believe you have the potential, but you've got to act soon.
Well, Doctor, I was looking at my upcoming schedule, and it says I'm playing Circle the Wagons this week. I think that was the name of the last patient I saw walking out, and he looked like he was in rough shape, Doctor. Should I just not worry about losing this week to Circle the Wagons?
That's another thing, son, is I think your situation is redeemable because of your schedule. You've got Circle the Wagons, Matchup King, Bear Jew, Renaissance are your next 4 matchups. If you act quick and make these trades and the decisions for your team and your health of your roster, I believe you could go 3-1 or 4-0 and be looking at irrelevance or who knows, maybe even that last playoff spot.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. I'll go do that right now.
All right, that is the Fantasy Doctor segment. Thank you always to all of our patients for being vulnerable and the doctor for prescribing fantasy wisdom upon them. Yeah, definitely some teams in rough shape in the Blind Squirrels Fantasy League. We'll kind of do a quick standings review here. Cannon 6-0. He's undefeated, never lost. Not the most. No, he does have the most points for in the league because I think we didn't do a week 5 review, but that was the week Cannon completely exploded for 197 points, which have we had someone score 200 in a regular season?
Not regular season, but playoff 2 weeks.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, massive week for Cannon last week, carrying his points 4 right now. And then you are actually second in the league. You're the only 5-1 team, 5 wins in a row for the Bogo Caniacs. You're just cruising along here, picking up Mickey Mouse win after Mickey Mouse win. And then we've got 2 4-2 teams sitting there. So we've got a nice, clear top 4. If the playoffs started right now, Cole and I would be in there as the 3 and 4 seed. I would be the 3. He would be the 4. And then we've got 2 3-3 teams, Josh and Max. And then those 4 teams we just talked about, seeing the Fantasy Doctor in rough shape, 3-1-5s, 1-2-4. So we do currently have a clear top 4, a clear relevance, and a clear bottom 4. It's hard to see any of the 1-5 teams climbing out of the Sacco. Obviously, it's very possible. They're only 2 games back of irrelevance right now at 3-3. So again, very possible for them to climb out at least to irrelevance. Cannon feels like a virtual lock for the playoffs. ESPN's already got his percentage up to 97. So are we reaching that point in the season where if you're 1-5 or 6-0, like, are you pretty much starting to just, obviously there's weeks to go. You still need, fantasy's a weekly game. You need to take it week by week, but are the moves you make, trades, pickups, are you starting to think a little more long-term here if you're one of these teams on either end of the extreme?
Yeah, for sure. I think 1-5, 6-0. I mean, But I will say, like, I'm 5-1, and I'm not there yet. I'm still trying to win every single week. I don't really take any week for granted, and I feel like at 5-1, I can't act like I've already made the playoffs. So canon, yes, the 1-5 teams, maybe as a hedge, you start thinking about the Sacco, but everyone else, we're just trying to do everything we can to win every single week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's take a look at. There wasn't anything crazy with the waiver wire this week. Pretty boring waiver wire. The highest winning bid was $21. Goddard will gets rid of Mark Andrews, adds Goddard. Goddard is the number 3 tight end in fantasy right now. We'll see if that sticks. A couple of unsuccessful bids there. $17 from Cannon, $5 from Luke. With all the wide receiver issues Max is dealing with, he went for $20 to add Jerry Jeudy. I don't really get this one. Jerry Judy's been horrible this season. He's yet to eclipse the double-digit fantasy point mark. He just had 6 fantasy points on 13 targets. I know they're playing Miami this week, so maybe it's a pure matchup play, but he's been horrible. And then, like we talked about, Luke going with Daniel Jones to try to fix that quarterback problem, dropping blows dicks to the waiver wire. He also added Sam Darnold. So Luke is just throwing shit at the wall out of desperation at quarterback, hoping something sticks. You went all in on Kayshon Boutte after his Mickey Mouse 2-touchdown return to New Orleans. You also had gone in on him after his Mickey Mouse 100-yard game in week 1. You have since come to your senses and already dropped him. So you basically just lit $10 a fab on fire. And then a bunch of people went in on defenses. You decided to pay up for the Seahawks, who are hosting the Texans on Monday Night Football. Let's see, Josh, Tez, John. Yeah, the rest of this is irrelevant. A bunch of kickers, defenses, and bums. So any big waiver wire takeaways?
Yeah, you kind of keep you continue to tinker at kicker. I see here that you added Jake Moody, and then he's already back on waivers, and then you went to Fairbairn. So
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't realize he's not actually the starting kicker. He was just filling in for Santos. So when I added him and I saw he was projected 0, I got a little concerned.
I will say, okay, I kind of ad-libbed during Fancy Doctor and made fun of Luke for having Aaron Jones, but I actually did not realize Aaron Jones was on waivers. I don't know if you realized that, and I'm not saying
I did.
I'm not saying he's going to be great, but I do think if he's coming back soon, he's definitely at least worth adding. Now, he's going to be in a 50-50 with Jordan Mason, so maybe, but I don't hate that speculative ad by Luke.
It's fine. I don't know when you'll feel comfortable starting him. The offense would have to take a big step forward, and I think that would include either McCarthy growing up very quickly or like Carson Wentz. I don't know. I feel like the offense isn't good enough right now for a 50% timeshare to produce for fantasy. So, but as an end of bench, see what happens. Definitely don't hate the $0 bid there. All right, now it's time for everyone's favorite segment.
Dun dun dun. Trade review. All right. Yeah, there's some discussion in the group text about this one. I guess we've had a couple trades since trade review. We don't have to go too deep into it. Basically, I trade raped Cannon. He took Jamar Chase as a bait sell high. And I got BTJ and JMO, which won me this last week. Pretty easy win for me there. And then, okay, so this week's trade, you and Josh made a trade. You traded Tetaroa, McMillan, and Breece Hall for Derrick Henry. So a 2-for-1 here. Josh acquiring a little bit more depth. Here's okay, and then you kind of consolidating your depth, grabbing Derrick Henry, who is on bye this week, so that's a part of this. And maybe Josh didn't, wanted 2 guys that are playing this week, but Yeah, I actually kind of like this trade for you somewhat. I'll talk about the pros and the cons. The pros are it really sets you up well from a running back standpoint. You're going to have Josh Jacobs, James Cook, and Derrick Henry. I like Derrick Henry as a buy low. Lamar's coming back. His schedule is amazing. He's still really good. I think he could be a top 5 running back rest of season, and I think doing a 2-for-1 to acquire that makes a lot of sense. And so even though him and Cook are on bye this week, you're going to have that trio rest of season starting next week. And so for a championship potential move, I like it. The only thing I'm questionable about it on is giving up Tedro McMillan. He's, in my opinion, your pretty easily best option at receiver 2 after Rashee Rice. You're really going to need Diggs, Quentin Johnston, or Pearsall to piece together receiver 2/flex. You've got Trey Benson coming back, Jalen Warren. Maybe you say you really just need one of those receivers to be startable, but it definitely makes you have to lean on some of these more questionable depth pieces more. But if Quentin Johnston is what he was early in the year, then I think he's clearly at least a receiver 2. But Tedroa was a little more consistent, and so you do give that up. But I think for the championship upside of your team, this was a good move. For Josh, I don't hate it just because his depth is pretty bad. Like every week he was starting guys like Ken Walker. Now he's still starting Ken Walker because Zay Flowers is on bye, but Breece Hall, I think there's an argument to be made. He should still be every week at least a starter in fantasy, and the same thing with McMillan. And so this could be the classic 2-for-1 where it helps both sides. I think Tedoroa should have a good second half being a rookie. Breece, the Jets are terrible. I don't really think he's going to get traded. And if he does, I don't really see where he could go that would be good for him. So you kind of just have to hope the Jets keep trying and that with his contract situation, he continues to try to have a good career year for himself. But when you look at Josh's running backs right now, Breece is his RB1. He has Chase Brown, Ken Walker, just a bunch of bums. So the running back is very, very concerning for Josh's roster. But as far as his overall lineup, I think it strengthens it where he doesn't have to play a Seahawks running back when before he was pretty much having to play a Seahawks running back every week.
Yeah, I'll kind of talk about my thought process with the trade. With Rashee Rice finally coming back from suspension, I got to add another wide receiver, really, in my view, my best wide receiver back into the fold. So that left me with QJ Diggs, Pearsall, and T-Mac all as my wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 options. I view pretty much all of those guys in a fairly similar light. I think QJ and T-Mac were the two that to me have like high end 2 upside that can really contend for a fantasy title in your lineup. So you kind of talked about it, like QJ needs to be good for this to work out. T-Mac is a good player. I like him for Dynasty. I like him as a prospect. I think he has shown a lot in these first 6 weeks, but a lot of it wasn't really translating to fantasy points, at least not in the way that you would want. He didn't score a touchdown until this last week against Dallas, whose secondary is lost. And even in that game, he has 2 touchdowns on 29 yards. So to me, it was like a little bit of a phony breakout. Yes, he had 2 touchdowns. Yes, he had 16 fantasy points. But honestly, I was hoping for more. I was thinking like I would rather have 120 yards and 1 touchdown than 29 yards and 2 touchdowns, even if it's similar fantasy production. I just want to see him putting up the type of consistent, sustainable numbers that will translate. Like no one is catching 2 touchdowns on 3 catches more than once or twice in a season. It's just not something that happens. So, I mean, again, good player, just Bryce Young, that passing offense. I kind of texted you this earlier. It feels like either the Panthers are struggling to move the ball and they're getting blown out by a good defense, or if they're facing a bad team like Miami or Dallas, they're just running the ball 60% of the time with Rico Dowdle and throwing every now and then. So when they were throwing a lot to randos like Hunter Renfrow, Jatavian Sanders, the running backs, Jimmy Horn, Leggett, and now we got Coker coming back. So we don't even know what this offense looks like with Coker. Maybe he starts taking away from McMillan as well. So I think McMillan will get better as the year goes on, but I'm just not sure how much that'll show up in the fantasy box score. So I was okay giving that up in favor of some of the options that I have. And then when it comes to Breece Hall, God, that Denver game was a disgusting watch. I literally went and took a shower after the game. That's how filthy I felt watching Aaron Glenn's offense try to operate. 22 carries for 59 yards off the top of my head. That's like 2.6 yards per carry or something awful like that. I thought he would have this opportunity with Braylon Allen down to kind of show what he's about, go for that contract, but they're 0-6. There's been rumors of him getting dealt. It just feels like it's going very south, very poorly, very quickly with Breece. And I decided I would rather go buy up a Ravens running back on a team that I know is good, on an offense I know is good. The leap of faith I just have to make is that Lamar will come back and be healthy, which by all accounts, he's taking this bye week to get healthy and will be starting in week 8. So right now, I have no reason to believe that Henry and Lamar won't lead this team down the stretch, and they will be very much trying and scoring points like they always do. So I think we'll see a lot more weeks like week 1 from Henry than what we've seen the last month or so. It's not been the Baltimore Ravens. It's been like a preseason version of them. So give me the Yeti to pair with Jacobs and James Cook down the stretch. Give me that triple-headed monster at running back. I think it improves my championships upside and consolidates my depth a bit.
Yeah, no, I like the trade for you. Yeah, I don't really have much else this week. I feel like we've kind of seen a stall in trades in the league. I think just people are kind of what we alluded to earlier. Like we're heading into bye weeks. People are kind of gearing up for the Sacco or the playoffs. I don't think there's going to be a lot of injuries. Like I think people just don't know what to do with their rosters right now.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the people in our league don't care enough to trade anyways. So, and like the people who do care to trade, like you and me, like our teams are doing well. So,
yeah, this was not a trade out of need, which sometimes those are the best trades, is when you're just doing it out of a luxury of consolidation, and that's kind of where this came from. You texted me at some point this morning basically noting how I was trading less than usual, and I was like, all right, I got to change that. So got on the phone, started working the phone, seeing what people wanted to do. Josh reached out, basically targeting T-Mac, and that was when I was like, oh, Henry. Henry's a player too. Like, I don't remember ever actually rostering him ever in fantasy. So he's been around a long time. He's a complete stud, and it'll be fun. I think he's not washed. He'll be good down the stretch. So, all right, let's take a look forward. Let's spin it to week 7, pivotal week 7 in the Blind Squirrels Fantasy League. Lots of fun matchups. Let's look at some of these irrelevant ones. We've got the Renaissance facing the Ugly Ducklings. Jerry is, again, we talked about he's 1-5. He's got to dig himself out of this hole. He lost last week. Josh pulled himself up to 3-3. Quarterback, we've got Baker Mayfield, the Bake Show, Laser Mayfield, he's on the road on Monday Night Football in Detroit, potentially without Ibuka and Godwin, maybe giving Evans back, but recently hasn't even seemed to matter. He's throwing touchdowns to guys off the street. And then Jaden Daniels off his best fantasy game of the year against Dallas. Holy shit. That is going to be a 30 burger there. Dallas's secondary is horrible. So advantage Josh at quarterback. Running back, we got A-Chain and Kamara versus Chase Brown, Brees Hall. I like A-Chain there. Wide receiver, Jefferson and Worthy versus A.J. Brown and T-Mac. I think Jefferson off the bye. I like that play for Jerry. I'm going to take wide receiver for Jerry. Tight end, McBride and Ertz. Got to go McBride. And then wide receiver, Terry, Scary, McLaurin, in at flex, fresh off injury. And Opportunity versus Ladd and Ken Walker. We've seen some good signs from Ladd the last couple weeks. I think Terry's going to have a big game, though. Kind of at blocking Jaden Daniels on Josh's side. He might catch 2 of Jaden's 3 or 4 touchdowns. So looking at this matchup, 2 decent teams in terms of their plays this week. I think A-Chain is the best start in this game, and then for Jerry, again, you're just hoping Jaden doesn't go bananas, and if he does, McLaurin takes enough of that away to kind of overlap and cancel some of that out. I do think this one will come down to Monday Night Football. We've got Montgomery for Jerry as well as Jason Myers, and then on Josh's side, he's got Ken Walker. So definitely going to come down to Monday night. Who falls in the end zone? Is it going to be Ken? Is it going to be Mop? I'm taking Opportunity to fall in the end zone against the Bucks at home. Jerry wins this one, lower scoring, 107 to 103.
If you were Josh, would you be starting Ken Walker?
If Pearsall is out, I would probably play Bourne. And other than that, I'm not playing Higgins, I'm not playing Charbonnet, and I'm not playing Miller Johnson. So it's either waivers or Bourne or Walker and hope he scores.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're praying for a touchdown, why don't you just throw Charbonnet in there because he's the goal line back? But whatever. Yeah, I'll go with
Trey's anti-Ken Walker propaganda continues for another week.
I'll go with Josh here. I don't really have a good reason for it. Both these teams kind of suck, but I like what I've seen from Ladd, McBride, and I think we're due for one of those Jaden 40-point games. He hasn't had one yet, right? He's had 22, 23, 19, 27. We're kind of due for one of those, and Dallas is going to be the place to get it. So I'll go with Josh. Next matchup, we'll look at Will and Cole. 1-5 versus 4-2, but honestly, I don't think these teams are that far apart. Now Will's still without Lamar, but he gets Mike Evans back, which is huge with Ibuka going out. So I really like Mike Evans this week. He's also got Gibbs in that same game on Monday night, so it's going to be pretty big for him on Monday. Drake London also Sunday Night Football, so a lot of prime time for Will again this week. Swift, good matchup against the Saints too. Pickens, you're kind of hoping Lamb coming back doesn't affect him too much. He's going with Bryce Young at the Jets. I kind of wish he would maybe switch that. I don't really know who's out there on waivers, but Bryce Young's only good at home, and the Jets have a pretty good defense, at least how they looked last week and with Sauce Gardner. So I would want Will to change out his quarterback, but overall his team's in a solid spot. For Cole,
would you take Aaron Rodgers over Bryce?
Yeah, probably, but I'd probably look even further. I don't know. Let me take a quick peek ski at waivers, see what I like. Honestly, I might look at God, waivers kind of suck for quarterback.
Yeah, what do you do? Start Rattler?
Brock Purdy, if Kittle's back and he's back, I think that makes some sense. But honestly, Atlanta's defense has been good. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe J.J. McCarthy just throw a dart because, I don't know, he'll do better than Bryce. But anyways, looking at Cole's team, kind of in some embarrassing plays here. He's throwing in Dobbs and Kraft, the number 2 and 3 option in the passing game for the Packers. Don't really love that. I guess he's just hoping one of them catches a touchdown. RJ Harvey, I have zero explanation for this start. He's had like 3 touches in the last 2 weeks on average and hasn't really done anything. I'd throw Gainwell in there just in the hopes he gets 50% of the work against the Bengals. I don't know, or I'd go to waivers. Harvey just makes no sense, and that makes me want to just pick Will. Potato, he'll continue to be good as long as Bucky's out. Metcalf should be fine. Genty and Bijan are auto starts. And then honestly, I don't really love Hurts this week at Minnesota. Brian Flores off a bye at home. That's going to be very tough for the Eagles with how their team is operating right now. And so I'm going to go with Will here pretty easily. I think Cole's team is a pretty fraudulent 4-2. And he just makes baffling decisions like starting RJ Harvey. So I'm going to go with Will.
I'm also going to take Will in a landslide, 139-80. All right, last irrelevant matchup. This is the battle of teams on 4-game losing streaks. Which team will get off the schneid here in week 7? Suck my dicka versus circle the wagons. One of these teams is going to get a win that they desperately need. For Andrew, he's got Lamb and Kittle coming back in pretty good spots here. For Lamb, it's home against Washington. Kittle, prime time, home against the Falcons. Quarterback-wise, it is tough for Andrew that he's without Josh Allen this week. He turns to C.J. Stroud off waivers, who did just have a 4-touchdown QB1 type of week before the bye week against Baltimore, but that was against a very beat-up Baltimore secondary. Seattle also beat up, but maybe be getting some guys back for that Monday night game. We'll see. We'll track the injury reports out the week. And then another waiver quarterback straight into the lineup on Luke's side, Daniel Jones, the number 8 fantasy quarterback, actually a bit of surprise here early on in the season for Indiana Jones. He is at the Chargers. Chargers defense has been okay this year. Don't hate that play. Don't love it. I feel like I would still go Herbert between Herbert and Jones, but I'm not making the decision. Running back, we've got Christian McCaffrey and Judkins, I know he finally had a bad game last week, but home against Miami is pretty much the easiest fantasy matchup you could concoct in terms of running backs. And then Andrew, still without Bucky, just really hurts his depth, kind of exposes it. Henderson is not startable right now, but he's having to. And then Bill, he needs Bill to show up this week. He didn't last week in a good matchup. He's got an even better one this week against the Cowboys. He needs 2 touchdowns there. But Luke has the running back edge by a mile here. And then wide receiver, I think Lamb and St. Brown kind of cancel each other out. But then when we go to the wide receiver 2 spot, Devontae Smith just doesn't have the type of touchdown upside that Devontae Adams does. So Luke has the much better Devontae here. No Puka in London. I think I just like Devontae to get force-fed targets. And I'm not in love with the Jacksonville secondary. I think Adams is going to moss Travis Hunter for a touchdown. Tight end, we've got the Walrus versus Kittle. This is Kittle by a mile. I know the Walrus has made some plays, caught some touchdowns, but I think we're starting to kind of see that he's a bum underneath. He had 12 yards last week in a game they were trailing. So it's a fun story. Goo goo gajoo, rap videos, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I don't know. 2025, I'm just not riding with Waller. Kittle by a mile. And then the flexes here. On Andrew's side, they're pretty gross. Tony Pollard, we saw Tajay Spears come back last week and actually out-snap Pollard. So I don't know how viable of a play that is. And New England's defense has looked pretty good early on in the season. Jordan Addison, off a bye. Don't know who his quarterback's going to be and taking on a pretty tough secondary. But Addison's one of those guys. He can just Jefferson draws the number 1 coverage, and Addison just breaks off a 70-yard touchdown out of nowhere. So I don't love the play, but I can't automatically count him out for a big game. And then on Luke's side, he is benching Jalen Waddle against the Browns, and he is rolling with Debo in a great match against the Cowboys. And then Keenan Allen, Keenan Allen, 3 tough games in a row for him. He is back home taking on the Colts, though. We'll see if QJ plays, open up some more target opportunities for Keenan. Looking at this matchup, I think both teams are going to be scratching and clawing for every fantasy point they can here. I think it comes down to the primetime windows. CJ Stroud on Andrew's side, Amon-Ra St. Brown for Luke. Overall, I think I prefer Luke. I cannot. The gap at running back is too big to overcome for Andrew. I think Judkins is going to pound the Dolphins. And Henderson, I can't pick someone starting Henderson, not in week 7. Luke wins this one 144 to 122.
Yeah, I've got Luke at a landslide here. Andrew's going to score 80 points again, 135 to 80. All right. Now we are presenting your Showtime matchups of the week, presented by Dancing with the Stars. Tune in to ABC on Tuesday nights. And we're looking at you, also presented by Melatonin and Diet Coke. We're going to take a look at the matchup between you and Cannon. This is a bit of a clash of the Titans. 4-2 versus 6-0. You're trying to hand Cannon that first loss. We'd love to do that. Bring him down a notch. He's kind of just gloating all the time like he does in the group text, but going to be kind of tough for you. You've got a couple tough bye weeks. You've got James Cook on bye and Derrick Henry on bye, and you still have Trey Benson on IR. He's without Egbuka most likely, but looking at the matchups, Dak and Mahomes are honestly both in great spots at home against tough defenses, so that's kind of a wash. Running back, he's got Saquon at Minneapolis, Kyron at Jacksonville. Kyron's just been such a stud lately. You've got Jacobs and Warren. Honestly, kind of studs across the board here. Warren is the one I'd question the most of those 4, just because he didn't get all the work coming off of his injury, and not sure that he's going to just get it on Thursday. But so I'll give Cannon the edge there at running back. Receiver, you're going with Rashee Rice, first game back. You need him to offset some of that Mahomes production, potentially catch a touchdown. And then Quentin Johnston, hopefully he's back this week for you. Cannon's got Rome Odunze off a bit of a cold streak, or at least one bad game. Home against the Saints, though, that should be nice for him, especially with DJ Moore's out. Jamar Chase on Thursday against the Steelers. I don't really love that spot for him. He's been kind of a garbage time merchant lately, so we'll see if he gets any in that game. Tight end, we got Warren versus Otten. That's a pretty big mismatch. I'm not really sure what Cannon sees here in Cade Otten. He's the 29th ranked tight end. So tough scenes as Cannon just continues to try to find something at tight end. Flexes, you're going with Diggs and Pearsall. I'm not really sure Pearsall's going to play. Kind of a desperation play from you. And then JSN and Javonte. That's pretty stacked flexes there for Cannon. JSN's the number 2 receiver in fantasy. Javonte's the number 5 running back. So he kind of dominates you there at flex. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Cannon here. I just think without Cook and Henry, your team's kind of weak. Not horrible, but just you're probably gonna be around 120, 130. He could put up, closer to what he's been putting up every week, about 140. So I think you kind of knew this when you accepted the trade today. You're 4-2. You have Rice coming back. You want to see some stuff this week, but with 2 major bye weeks, I don't think you're necessarily expecting to win, especially against a 6-0 team. So I'll take Cannon here, 140 to 130.
I'm going to take myself. The path to the upset here is clear to me. I need to outscore him at quarterback by quite a big margin. I think Dak has to just go bananas and go for like 40, and then Mahomes maybe gets some bad touchdown luck. They run over the Raiders and get a defensive touchdown or something like that. Dak goes for 40. Mahomes goes for 20. Warren is gonna have to get me off to a good start tomorrow night. It is put up or shut up for Jalen Warren against the Bengals. The Bengals run defense sucks, and then I'm gonna need Warren, the other Warren. I'm gonna need Tyler Warren to flex his muscles a little bit and kind of shove K-Dot in a locker at tight end. Flexes, I'm going to need some luck. I think I agree with you. I don't know if Pierce Hall's going to play. I also picked up Darnell Mooney, who's also in that Sunday night game. So just whichever one of those guys is active, I'm going to toss him in there and hope for a long play. And then, yeah, I just think I'm going to have to piece together a victory here. Definitely going to need a B- showing from Cannon, and then maybe if I get an A to A+ showing from my lineup, I can get it done. So I'm going to take myself 129 to 127, hand Cannon that first L of the season. All right, our last Showtime matchup of the week. Trey's going to walk this one in. Free victory bye week from the Oracle. Max is in rough shape this week. Puka is currently in the lineup, but projected 0 and questionable to play. They're over in London, and they have a bye the following week, so I would be shocked if they push it, even if it's close. He's dealing with some sort of an ankle sprain. Harrison is in concussion protocol. We'll see if he clears it by game time. Even if he does, the Packers are a good defense, and we don't even know if Kyler's going to play. So tons of question marks surrounding his receiving core right now. He does get Nico back off a bye, taking on the Seattle Seahawks, who could be without their top corner. Garrett Wilson is doubtful with a knee injury, and then Hampton's still on IR. So again, just injuries piling up here for the Oracle. He did pick up Jerry Jeudy off waivers, so I'd be shocked if he doesn't start Jerry Jeudy. He is taking on the Dolphins, so that defense loves to give up fantasy points to all positions. Isaiah Pacheco, home against the Raiders. We did see Pacheco's volume go up a little bit. He had a season high in carries against the Lions, 12 carries for 51 yards. But he's just not involved in the passing game, 0 receiving yards. And I don't know. He just hasn't looked great this season overall. Kamani Vidal, that was a good pickup by Max. Fill in for Hampton. He had 21 fantasy points in his first game as their replacement. And then Jordan Mason off a bye, home against the Eagles. I don't know if Jalen Carter is back. If he is back, I don't love it as much. If not, I could see him doing some damage like Scadaboo did last Thursday. Laporta, this is actually a pretty good play here from Max. He's blocking Goff a little bit, and Laporta is coming off 2 big games, 92 yards a week ago, and this past week, 55 and a touchdown. So Laporta's kind of heating up. Don't hate that play at all for Max, especially over Kelsey. And then at quarterback, he's going with Stafford in London, no Puka. Don't love that, honestly. I would actually like to see him go Fields there and kind of just lean on the rushing upside. For you, it's kind of the same guys you've been running out there. JT, Superstar, Scadaboo at Denver. I don't know how good you feel about that matchup. Could kind of see the shoe dropping for Scadaboo. And then at wide receiver, you're hoping BTJ keeps it rolling. Also in London, it's the Rams. Rams, you have a good defense. I could see that being kind of just one of those yucky England games like we saw from the Jets and the Broncos. Maybe not as bad, but don't really see a bonanza there. Matthew Golden, is this the first time you've started him all year?
Yeah.
Yeah, 59th ranked receiver, averaging 6 fantasy points. Kind of an embarrassing start here from you. What is this, like a 15-team league or something? I don't know what you're doing here. I guess Hunter is a bum. Ridley's hurt, and yeah, wait, why aren't you starting DJ? I guess DJ Moore is also hurt. So you're kind of dealing with some annoying, nagging little injuries to bums you're not even sure you're going to start anyways. So if they're hurt, that pretty much rules them out from consideration. Tight end, Fergie is the number 1 tight end in fantasy. Home against the Commanders, that's a smash auto start. And then flex, you're going JMO and Dobbins. JMO off his best game of the year, Dobbins off his worst. So a couple of guys potentially going in opposite directions for you. I do like Dobbins to have a bounce back at home against the Giants. Their run defense is not great. JMO, you're stacking with Goff, home, Tampa Bay. The over/under there should be pretty big. Team total for the Lions should be pretty big. They like to put up a lot of points in the dome there. Like I said, this is a bye week for you. You're just getting Max in a great spot. All 3 of his best receivers are hurt. Stafford's without Puka. Hampton's still out, and you're gonna ride this streak. You're gonna be 6-1. So congratulations to you. Free win, 140 to 60.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. Max is a formidable opponent. He's got a good lineup. I'm not going to
shut up.
Granted, but I do think I get the win here. Jonathan Taylor is just too good. He does not have a Jonathan Taylor if Puka's out, and so and then I've got the Goff stack, and that they're going to combine for at least 1 touchdown. Big game there on Monday. So yeah, I take this one 138 to 116.
All right, that was your Week 7 preview and picks from the Showtime pod. It all starts tomorrow night when the Cincinnati Bengals host the Steelers on Thursday night prime. And then it wraps up on Monday. We have another doubleheader. This one actually not staggered. They're going back to the 6 and 9. So we will have a game starting at 9 Central Time to wrap up the fantasy week. We've got the Lions and the Bucks, and then that leads into the Seahawks and the Texans. So should be a fun week of fantasy. I don't know about you. I'm kind of craving some closer matchups, maybe coming down to the wire. I really want to see some group chat action. We haven't had those like classic group text nights yet. It just feels like a lot of these margins of victory have been too big. So let's get some fun fantasy games, maybe some upsets. Should be a fun week. Thank you guys always for listening to the Showtime Fantasy Podcast. We'll be back at you next week with a Week 7 recap, Week 8 preview.